All right. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Writers Guild podcast. It's me, Belton, and my fellow host, Kason Wysong, three-time self-published author. Colors
right.
of the Mayhem. Check it out on Amazon. Today's
Thanks,
episode
Belton.
is a little tier list. We're doing something a little different. It's actually going to involve a visual medium this time around. So, for those of you that, like to watch the videos, if you like to stare at our handsome faces, I don't blame you. Then you're going to get a nice little tier list visual that you'll get to see with this episode. And for those of you that just listen, totally fine. We'll do our best to verbalize everything that's happening so you get a sense of context of what's going on. So basically, Kason and I, we were talking about what our favorite fantasy characters are. Now, this is not by no means meant to be an exhaustive list. This is just a smattering of characters that are, for one reason or another, whether good or ill, significant to us. Now, this actually might be pretty difficult because the characters I chose are all characters I actually quite like. But yeah, it might actually be a little difficult. I don't know about you, Case. It's going to actually be a little difficult for me to rank these characters because I made the mistake of just choosing characters I love from books I love.
I kind of did the same thing. So we'll see how this goes.
Dude, we're in this together. Shall we go ahead and dive in?
I will say there is one character I'm going to just absolutely lay the smackdown on. So that's coming, but let's do it. Let's dive in.
And we might even, as we go along, think of characters and improv, in the moment, and which obviously they won't be, visually added to the tier list, but we could certainly comment on them. So boom, here it is. Here's the tier list. We got 10 characters. I'm just reading them off in the order that they appear there. There's Chivalry and Fitz. Those are both from the Farseer trilogy, a book series I love. You got Gandalf. What character tier list for fantasy characters is complete without Gandalf? You got Kaladin from Stormlight Archive. You got Mo from the Inkheart trilogy. You got, oh man, how do you say his name? Koth?
Kvothe. I don't know. I'm probably wrong.
Koth?
Voth.
These are all
K
fake
silent.
names.
No idea.
You by definition can't mispronounce them.
That's right.
Anyway, you got Randolph Thor. Is that Wheel of Time?
Wheel of Time. Mm-hmm.
I have not read that. I'm too intimidated by its significant length,
It's a
especially after the
commitment.
Stormlight Archive kind of destroyed me. You got Percy Jackson from, what is it? Percy Jackson and the Olympians, that series. You got Vasher from Warbreaker, which is my favorite Brandon Sanderson book. And you got Violet Sorrengail. Did I say that right? And she's from, you said, the Fourth Wing?
Fourth
I have
Wing.
not read it, but I know it's very popular.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, dude, why don't we just start with common ground? Some of these characters I've read, some of these characters you've read, a few of them we've both read. Let's start with common ground. Let's start with Gandalf. I mean, that's someone everyone's going to know when it comes to fantasy, right? We might need to explain a little bit more about other characters, but with Gandalf, he needs no introduction, right? But we're going to introduce him in our own terms. Dude, give me your breakdown of. Honestly, we could also kind of dive in a little bit into book versus movie, right? But I think his character's fairly consistent. I know he's a little grumpier in the books. What do you got to say about Gandalf? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Lord of the Rings movies are one of the best book to screen adaptations out there, and I think a lot of people would agree with that take. Gandalf as a character, I mean, he's an icon. He set the standard for how we visualize wizards and the archetype of the wizard. I mean, he's kind of the Godfather wizard in my mind. And so Gandalf, when I'm thinking about characters, I'm thinking about creativity, complexity, and consistency. And on each of those points, he's off the charts creatively. There's so much about his character that's intriguing, complexity-wise. There's a lot of depth to who he is. He has some of the most fire one-liners that we've ever heard. I mean, just lines that even casual, and I'm a casual, but people who don't know a lot about the lore still know, right? Like, you shall not pass, and lines like that. And then as far as consistency goes, he is kind of the quintessential mentor figure in the hero's journey, and he's just there, and he does his thing throughout all the books. And he even has a really, really cool sort of resurgence, rebirth. I'm trying to think of the right word to call it. So there's still development in his character, but he is consistently checking the boxes on like we know what his identity is, and he checks those boxes, and he stays consistent in that regard, while still Tolkien still worked in some incredible development, just as he goes from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. So as far as my rating goes, if we're or do you want to go and then we both drop ratings, or what do you think?
Oh, dude, yeah. Let's both give our take and then debate on where the character sits.
Oh, perfect.
I'll be honest.
Here we
I've
go.
never read Lord of the Rings. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, dude, I honestly,
start.
I'm going to be a fanboy and just hop on the bandwagon with you. Gandalf's great. I mean, in terms of like, I like that he's not just a good character who's just benevolent all the time. He's also grumpy, and he snaps at people. I like that in terms of his characterization. Honestly, he's so ubiquitous, right? And just in my own mind, I can't remember a time in which I read and didn't know who Gandalf was. I mean, like, what the first proper chapter book I read was The Hobbit. So, like, dude, Gandalf is, talk about core memories, right? Not just one. He's embedded deep into my psyche, so it's hard not to be biased. And frankly, you can't really be biased in this case because, like you were saying, he's the gold standard. He's a benchmark. I mean, Tolkien, set the standard not just for wizards, but for the genre of fantasy as a whole.
So true.
We all stand in his shadow, any of us who write in fantasy, which you and I both have done.
But yes, we try to stand in his shadow.
Yeah. Oh, hey, well spoken. Just don't develop a George R.R. Martin insecurity complex about it. That's not healthy. That's a little weird. At least I think so.
Yeah, he starts to think his shadow is himself. It's a little weird.
Oh, dude. He's Gandalf's great. I have watched the movies more than I've read the books.
Same.
With movies, I'm more likely to revisit. Books, typically, especially since there's such a time commitment, I usually want to read something new. So I'm so familiar with the Lord of the Rings that I just haven't really revisited them, over the years. And I don't think I will for a very, very long time because they're so familiar. And I want to experience new stuff, right? So that being said, I'm more familiar these days, ironically, based on what I just said, these days with Gandalf in the movie. And, there's a reason why successful actors are paid so much, because like casting is everything. If you cast a wrong actor for a role, it can ruin things. And Sir Ian McKellen, he's the kind of actor who's on the next level. He can get lost in the character. You can forget who's portraying the character because he commits to it. I mean, he is Gandalf in my book, right? He plays that wise, caring man who also has a grumpy edge to him so well. Like you said, he has such wonderful lines, and it's all so beautifully encapsulated. I know we're focusing on books here, but that's all based on the character in the book. I don't want to ramble about it anymore because we got.
Well, I think that your
to
point about. Like I read The Lord of the Rings probably actually no joke, probably about 15 years ago. And so the books themselves, like, yes, they're powerful. They're the gold standard for fantasy. They redefine the genre, or actually they define the genre. But the movies, I would say as well, like, I am more familiar with that. I do kind of want to talk about, because some of these characters have been adapted to the screen, and I think it's interesting. I don't have like, if we get to Randolph Thor, I'll speak a little bit to what they did with him in the Amazon Prime series. But, I think we can kind of have our toes in both waters. So,
absolutely.
I feel like we're both,
dude, it's
3, 2, 1, say
it's
it.
It's not even a question. It's not even a whoop. No, I'm kidding. Dude, he's amazing. Again, gold standard, genre defining.
Gandalf's the
Which
man.
character would you like to tackle next?
You know what? Let's do. Okay, why don't we do Percy Jackson? Also really recognizable. Oh, sorry, say that again.
I knew you were gonna say Percy Jackson. I was just like, I don't want to do it, but I have to face the music. What was the last thing you said?
Is it because Gandalf is a tough follow up? Because we can start with Violet Sorrengail and I can just go off.
I think let's save Violet Sorrengail for later. I'll explain later why I intend that. If I'm gonna say Percy Jackson next, let's save her for a little later, like 2 or 3 characters more after this. Okay, so Percy Jackson. Okay, Percy Jackson is a perfectly fine character. The writing, the way if I'm going to talk about all his portrayals, since we did that with Gandalf, In the book, he's fine. It's just he suffers from being in a kid's book that's written very simply. It's okay. I mean, you don't writing style. Everyone's got their own writing style. Everyone's got their own things they want to emphasize. The way oftentimes his character is portrayed is just, we've talked about show don't tell, and there's a lot of just plainly telling things. And when he's acting, not a lot of emphasis on how it impacts him. Just sort of a list. Like I kind of started getting tired of it when I started to reread the books. Just like when he's in an action scene, it just sort of is a list of things he does in the action scene. And it makes his character a little hollow. But his character is very, very well portrayed in the movies because the actor, I don't know his name, but the actor who plays him is just a good actor. And he doesn't look the part. He's too old. That's all well and good. But he plays the character with charm. He delivers the lines in a convincing, entertaining way. And he brought a lot of life and charm to it. The actor who plays him now looks the part, but he's not good at acting. And that could just be a byproduct of inexperience. I mean, he was cast as someone who was like actually the age of the character. And, it's hard to find child actors that like nail it, right? I mean, experience is key in acting. So overall, you get one instance in which he's portrayed charmingly, and in the other instances, he's a little stiff, he's a little flat. I'm not going to say he's bad. I'm going to say he's okay. I'm sure some people would get pissed off.
Is that
it's a kid's book.
Okay, so it is with like the view of the book. You're kind of excluding the movie, or are you sort of merging them in your rating?
I'm merging them all together to give an ultimate take.
Just like the character. Okay.
That's just the perspective I'm taking. I'm kind of playing this fast and loose. I'm not being super systematic in how I'm talking about this.
Who would you?
It's just the way the books are written. I mean, they're a little empty. They lack depth, and as a consequence of the writing style itself lacking depth in that it's written for 12-year-olds, the characters lack depth. So Percy Jackson, ironically, the son of Poseidon, kind of lacks depth. I'll give you an example. In the second movie, he finds out he has a brother, and his brother, or a half-brother, and his half-brother is a monster. He's a Cyclops. And so in the movie, he's embarrassed about it. In the book, that character arc doesn't even happen because in the very beginning, he's already friends with the Cyclops named Tyson, and they're buddies. And when he finds out he's a brother, he's just sort of, okay. And there's really no character arc there, like there's really nothing for him to, like the only struggle in the story is him getting through his quest, his little mythical journey he's going through. There's not really any deep existential struggles he goes through. Everything is pretty external and literal, and so anyway, I'm not trying to, I'm sure plenty of people will get all riled up over that, but like, and I agree that it's a kid's book or it's a kid's show or whatever is not a valid criticism of anything because it can be good. Like I love the show Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a kid's show. The characters in it are phenomenal. And there's one character in particular, I won't tell you because I want you to watch this. There's one character in particular who has an amazing, actually, shoot, I should have put him on the list. He has the best character arc I think I've ever seen in a show. And it's a kid's show. It's great. So anyway, that's me on that. Who do you want to cover next?
Let's do Rand al'Thor.
Rand al'Thor, dude.
Yeah.
Boom. Give it to me. This is a character I don't know, so you're going to have to school me up.
Rand al'Thor is the main... Well, he's one of the main characters in the Wheel of Time series. The books are really extensive and kind of closely follow. There's about 4 or 5 main characters, arguably. Robert Jordan packs a lot in, but you could say that Rand al'Thor is the main character in the series just because he's the Dragon Reborn. So...
Oh, dope.
This is just to set the context, it's I think it's 13 books. Yeah, 13 books plus like a prologue book. Each of those books are around 700 to 800 pages long. There's a lot.
Dude.
Mm-hmm. And it takes over the length of about a year. So it's a lot packed into a relatively short amount of time. And Rand al'Thor, he goes from your Aragon-esque... actually Aragon kind of copy and pasted off of him, but he goes from your pretty typical village boy who is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, doesn't know a lot about the world, to suddenly being the centripetal force that everything kind of swirls around. And so he has a ton of development through that, and there were a lot of characters that Robert Jordan packed into the Wheel of Time series. Rand was a tough one too, because I distinctly remember, like, Robert Jordan, he was great at describing people's expressions and eyes, and he would say they're hard, and like, just they look like they have hard faces, and he'd be like, and then it was like hard as stone, and then it was like hard as diamond, and then he'd kind of like keep one-upping this development from Rand being like this soft, like, kind of a youth, or young man, to suddenly being this like stone cold killer type of character. And it was a little, I think the word you used when you were describing Percy Jackson was stiff, and at times it came across a little stiff, a little forced, like,
Yeah.
all right, is this guy a statue? It was a little odd, but he also had Robert Jordan did dive into the emotional depths too, because he had relationships with, I mean, there were 3 women that he was romantically interested in, and then there was obviously like his friends, and his circle did get tighter and tighter and smaller as the books went on, and that was kind of interesting to see. But as far as a character goes, I think that what was really satisfying about Rand's story was the end and what ultimately happens to him. And I'm not going to, the Wheel of Time series are kind of timeless. I'm not going to go into any spoilers there, but I do think that Brandon Sanderson, and he was going based off of Robert Jordan's notes. If you guys don't know, Robert Jordan died before he could finish the series. Brandon Sanderson took on the monumental task of doing that, and honestly, he did a phenomenal job. And the ending for Rand in particular was really, really satisfying. So overall,
Wow.
I would probably place him in good, just because I think that there were times that he felt he was a little too stoic, but then he'd also be too much of a rage monster, and it was this weird mix where he'd be kind of this, again, stone cold killer, and then he'd be this rage monster, and then he's wanting to be romantically involved with these women or pushing them away, and he was a little all over the place. Maybe that's just humanity, right? A little messy, a little chaotic, but it did feel a little disjointed, and I would say contradicts. I'm trying to hold everyone up to that same litmus test of creativity, complexity, and consistency. And I would say that third point is where Rand suffered a lot, is just as a character, he was not super consistent, even as he was going through his development and his character arc. You're not necessarily supposed to be consistent, but even through that, there's certain ideals that he just it was like he would do things or say things that were a little bit jarring. So that'd probably be my rating for it. These are also books that they've been 15 years since I've picked up. I'm 30, so kind of around the ages of like 15, 16, 17 or when I read The Wheel of Times.
Yeah.
So anyway, any thoughts, Belton?
Dude, that was great. I will say, the aspect of it that I can comment on with the books of Brandon Sanderson's I've read, he has such a capacity for writing sheer volume. And one of the side effects of that is he can tend to, fixate on odd details, which I think will happen to anybody, because we have a finite capacity for how many things we can delve into and what depth we can delve into them. So, I would say that there is a finite capacity at which how much detail you can go into a thing versus how many things you can go into, and they all will proportion relative to your ultimate capacity. And a consequence of that I've seen with Brandon Sanderson, he tends to like fixate on oddly specific things and kind of repeat them where it's just not necessary. An example I would give is in Stormlight Archive. He gets really fixated on describing salutes which is so odd to me. Like, and it gets it, talking about that one-upping thing, it doesn't get as extreme as you were talking about, where somebody goes from having a face of stone to diamond to, I don't know.
He made up
hole.
like an element that was even like, it was just like the ultimate, like strongest. I forget what the element was called.
His face was like titanium.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, and I would say with the shows, by the way, that's a great,
I can't move.
great point with Brandon Sanderson. And I would say with the show, you can watch the Amazon Prime show, and I think I just get the sense they didn't really know what to do with Rand, and there was a lot of issues that I take with that show. But for me, the casting in it was all pretty atrocious, except for Moiraine. I think they absolutely nailed Moiraine. So just on record, I wanted to say that.
Dude, yeah, I remember.
She's kind of his
I
Gandalf,
watched
by the way.
Netflix. I'm going to butcher this. I read Six of Crows, and there's a series that goes before it that serves effectively kind of like a prequel. I mean, it came before it. It's the same universe. Anyway, different stories set in the same universe. And I forget what that's called. It's like Shadow and Bones or something like that. I forget exactly.
I watched it.
But Netflix did like 2 seasons of it before it got canceled. But they cast actors to play characters that were really just in Six of Crows. And one of them is like the main character, who's like this like criminal boss. I forget the details. It's been a while since I read it. But anyway, point being, the reason why I brought it up, they nailed it with the casting. It was perfect. It was an unknown. So it's an actor I don't know from anything else. So I didn't have any, assumptions coming in when I saw his face. And he looked the part and he acted it, and it was amazing. I don't even like Six of Crows. I thought it was all kind of silly. Just not my cup of tea. Find that other people like it. Not hating on it. It's just not my cup of tea. But like, dude, the actor was perfect. And when casting is done right, it's magic. So it's so important.
Totally.
But yeah, Brandon Sanderson tends to focus on odd details. I wanted to kind of like expound on this. Like, he describes salutes in Stormlight Archive, and he gets obsessed with it. Like, in the first few books, it's like, such and so saluted the commander, and it's like crispy. It was a crispy salute, and it's like, all right, yeah, crispy salute. The guy knows how to salute. Awesome. But then, like, the commander I forget the leader, the main guy's name that Kaladin serves under. Really great character. Should have put him on the list. But there's like a part where some guy is passing him by and salutes him, and like that character who's this leader who's burdened with all these great responsibilities of leadership and the uncertainty of what's going to happen to his world in light of this insane supernatural invasion and his homeland. It's crazy. And he's standing there thinking about how crispy a dude's salute was. Like, that was a pretty crispy salute he gave me. And I just thought that was weird. It's like, there's such a weird thing to focus on. And I think it's just a consequence of, like, this guy has written hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words, and he's just running out of things to say. And so he just he just copied and pasted effectively stuff about salutes.
I feel like that's a great segue into our next character.
Oh, wait. Kaladin?
Hey.
Okay, I've got that's actually, dude, nice segue. That is actually a great character to be here, because I'm not gonna lie, man, there's a lot of great things about Kaladin, but I've got some criticisms. My primary criticism of him.
I've got some criticisms.
My primary criticism of him, there's 2 criticisms I have of him. Ultimately, one of them is a mere limitation of the author. Brandon Sanderson, I think, is a wonderful human being. I really, really like him. I love his work. I think he's an impressive dude, a hard worker. I love that he's a people's champ. I love that he's made millions, and yet he's still just a regular guy. He hasn't let it change him, and that's wonderful. That being said, he doesn't do a good job at getting into the depths of somebody's soul and expressing pain and suffering. Like Robin Hobb is an author who's great at that. There's some
too good.
Margaret Mitchell's great at that. There's some authors who really know how to write on paper the process of a soul unraveling and showing the raw pain that can be packed deep within. Brandon Sanderson doesn't really know how to. So, I mean, his approach is to kind of like approach it from a kind of like a conventional wisdom perspective instead of from a personal perspective. It's from a conventional wisdom perspective is the way I'll describe it. He uses kind of like the terminology, the understanding that people have today of mental health and all that. And as a consequence, you get what I find to be a very sterilized experience of internal pain. Now, That's not always the case. I think in some cases, Kaladin suffers in very real ways that are convincing. However, my ultimate criticism, and again, I think this is a consequence of writing a story that's so large, Brandon Sanderson repeats himself, and he repeats himself on the character arc level. I have
Yep.
expressed this perspective to friends before, and my perspective is not unanimous. I've had people disagree with me. But Kaladin, in like the first few books, he goes through the arc of pain of loss, right? And this is after he's sort of, gained his powers. He has a Spider-Man 2 moment twice. He suffers pain of loss, and it creates effectively combat performance anxiety. He just doesn't know how to fight because he's so afraid of losing, because every time he stands up to fight for someone, he loses them, and he just starts to think, what am I doing? I'm pathetic. And it really depresses him. But he gets through it, and he gets a new power, and then he kicks the bad guy's butt who is harrying him the whole book, and he wins, and it's awesome. And it's usually a pretty cool moment that I really honestly enjoy. But the next book, same thing happens. He's depressed again. And it's like, yeah, the pain never goes away, but the final arc he goes through, I think it's specifically in the one you're reading now, Rhythm of War, the fourth book. It's specifically in that one where he comes across less like a tortured soul that's gone through the horrors of war. He sounds a little more just like a kind of whiny brat in how it's characterized, and I did not like that. And I also did not like that he was effectively going through the same fundamental character arc he had gone through in the last book or so of, deep depths of despair, sad about loss, performance anxiety. You can guess what happens next. You haven't finished the book, so I'm not saying.
Oh, I would have...
So repetitive character arcs and a... missing the bullseye with characterizing something that is hard to do, expressing someone who's in the deep throes of despair and pain, and first off, it's not like Brandon Sanders has ever gone through that, so how is he going to express that? He's also known to be someone who's very even keel. Yep. Brandon Sanderson isn't really familiar with like depression and all that as other people. He's a very stable person emotionally, which I envy. And he's been very transparent about the fact that does create blind spots for him. But the way in which he has educated himself in those aspects, I think, has ultimately created a sterilized perspective of it that's a little more clinical. Mm-hmm. And I prefer something more raw and human and personal, So all that being said, I would love to hear what you say, and then we're going to debate on where it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything you said. I have... the issues that I take with Kaladin, he went from my favorite character in the first book to my least favorite character in the third book, or one of my least favorite characters. In fact, I just didn't find, or wait, sorry, not the third book, the fourth book. What am I reading?
Yeah, you got beef with that one.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible. It's so slow and boring, and come at me, fools. Like, I will fight you over this.
You should do an episode on your YouTube channel about that.
Oh my gosh. I really should just get a bunch of dislikes. It's good engagement. But
Yes.
Kvothe, or sorry, not Kvothe. I lost where I was. Kaladin. Yeah, so I would agree with everything you would say. And chronic depression is a thing. It is an odd vice to try and tackle repeatedly, though, if it's not something that you personally have experience with. And I think what would have been more interesting, or let me use a better word, more apt and intriguing, would have been if Brandon Sanderson introduced other types of conflict and showed how Kaladin navigated those with his ability to overcome his depression and kind of find his why, which we sort of established in the first book, that whole character arc. So if Brandon Sanderson had just been more creative in his character development, I think that Kaladin could have been a much more competent and likable character than he ends up being in whatever book I'm on, the fourth book, where I would agree with you. He is just very whiny, and it's so hard to think of the guy who's lashing up in the sky, hair flowing, spear, and suddenly he's just walking around and he's like, you know, doing surgery stuff, and he's like, everything I touch dies, and it just gives me Twilight vibes.
He goes
so
emo. Dude,
Yep,
yeah, and
exactly.
it just okay. One last comment I'll give. I know we need to move on because we're limited on time.
we gotta book it through
I
these.
just like I remember watching a video of like this is something I think about a lot because like I have an interest in soldiers and you know people that have fought overseas and what they've gone through and what are they like? What are the kind of people that are courageous enough to go through that and how has it affected them? I'm fascinated by that. And a lot of you know there are a lot of characters in my story are in the military, so like I've fixated on that and I've read books about people. And I remember watching a video where a guy's being interviewed. He was and he was very stoic, you know, fit looking dude, very stoic, you know, kind of the perfect picture of a soldier, right? He was exactly what you'd expect. He was very professional and relaxed as he described something he went through. Very calm. You wouldn't never think anything was wrong. And then just like halfway through his story, he suddenly stops and he like takes a step back and he's like, I'm sorry. And he like has a moment where he's just kind of freaking out, you know, starts to tear up, not like, ooh, not like that.
Right.
I mean, he's still a stoic guy, but physically he can't stop himself from reacting. And he explained that he just had a moment. He had an episode from going back to that moment.
That would have
His
been
body had a
way
very
more
real primal
readable.
response to that.
Yeah.
That would have been a better way to have characterized Kaladin.
more readable.
I mean, it makes sense that he would be a very relaxed, calm. They talk about, I think it's called like adrenal fatigue, you know, guys or anybody. I mean, anybody that goes through extreme things like that, typically they get back home and they might come off as a little apathetic and certainly very calm because it's going to be harder for them to get excited because they're tired on a deep level. So Kaladin having all this energy to whine and complain and just be mopey is not becoming of what I know to be a hardened, experienced soldier who's seen some stuff. It's not typically how people express themselves. Now, everyone's different, but that's just what I've come to understand. So I really think Brandon Sanderson missed the mark. That being said, where do you think he should sit? But also his introduction was awesome in the first book.
Yeah,
initial battle.
because of the first book, I would put him in. Nah, I'm gonna put him in okay.
Did you say okay? Oh, you know,
I would say okay.
I would say.
Where are you at? Are you higher or lower? Higher.
I was gonna say good.
Yeah, I was gonna say good, but then I was just thinking about this most recent book, and that's why I put him in okay.
You know what? I can agree with that. I'm not gonna fight you on it. I agree.
Well,
I
I was gonna say
again,
I'm
the
fine
ultimate-
with good.
What's up?
I'm fine with good just because for 3 books, I did like him. Now, it did decrease with each book, but, you know, he had a very strong
Ultimately,
showing.
I think that's a symptom of, again, that the book, I think the Stormlight Archive series is too long. I think 5 books was too many. I think the story could have been told in 4.
Probably.
And as a consequence, again, there's some echoes. You know, we've talked about word echoes. You know, people tend to use the same word twice in the same paragraph, maybe the same sentence if they're being sloppy. And echoes, they populate on a larger scale. So I think there was echoes that occurred, you know, of decreasing quality across that series. And it's just a consequence of it being such a big series. So ultimately what I would say of Brandon Sanderson is it's amazing that he even had the capacity, the determination to take on such a project. But as a consequence, we did see some growing pains in the form of echoes.
Yeah.
So that's him.
I
Who do
kind
you
of
wanna
wish
tackle
there was
next,
a
man? Do you
tier
wanna
between
talk about Violet,
okay and
Soren,
good that
Gale,
was like
Dale?
fine. That would be like the perfect place to put him.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So I wish that we had like a tier between okay and good that was fine. I think that would be the perfect place to put him.
I should have done that.
Nah, you're
next
good.
time. Dude, who do we tackle next? Should it be Violet, Soren, Gale? I know you're ready to rumble with that.
I'll keep it short. Violet Sorengale. Yeah, I mean, just as far as like character development, unless we're talking about unrestrained lust, there isn't much in the Fourth Wing novel. She just doesn't. She goes through a lot, right? It's kind of your Hunger, or it attempts to be what the Hunger Games pulls off masterfully, and it falls flat in my opinion. It throws in some dragons. Okay. Ultimately, it's kind of a smut story. So Violet Sorengale, she came across as me as competent, but not exactly likable. I think that there was no creativity in her character, no complexity, and she was consistent, but just consistently unlikable in my opinion. And so I would put her in bad. First bad.
Okay. And so is that a consequence of her personality or the quality of her personality's portrayal? Which do you think it is? Do you think it was like unintentionally bad character? Like the author just didn't command characterization effectively? Where would you see? I mean, I'll put it where you said, but I was just curious. Just wanted to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the
It's something I've been thinking about.
I think the author was trying to go for kind of like your BA female. Is she the only female we have on the list, by the way?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. Oh, we put her in bad.
Put her in bad. We are too.
We got to do a female version.
Oh, yeah. We got to do one where there's only one dude and he sucks on the list.
I know.
To balance it out.
Gosh. Cut this part out. Yeah, that's so funny. We didn't even mean to. We are so misogynistic.
We're learning, though, right?
Yeah, so
we're learning.
Violet, I don't think her character was. I don't know if there was ever meant to be a lot of depth there. Romantasy in general, especially like, and Fourth Wing, I wouldn't even put in the romantasy category. It's more like smut. There's not supposed to be a lot of depth to her character, so I think that her portrayal was pretty accurate according to what the author was trying to, as the author was trying to have her come across to the audience. But I mean, yeah. I don't know. It's a tough question. I just know that for me, when I was reading her character, I look for competency, likability, and again, kind of those 3 C's as far as what kind of characters I'm personally drawn to. And I wasn't finding a lot of redeeming qualities with her. So she came across as kind of, I think the way I'd describe her is like a teenage girl who wants to be a biker girl.
Sick. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I don't have anything to say.
Moving on. That's our short one.
I don't want to. It's just not my cup of tea. Who do you want to tackle next?
There is one name on here. Well, I know Fitz.
I mean, you could just say
Chivalry.
a name, and
let's do.
If it's my territory, I'll go for it.
Let's do Chivalry.
Dude. Okay. I am not nearly as like systematic in how I'm evaluating these characters as you. Like you had those 3 C's that you read, like you sound off so eloquently. Me, I just think of 2 things. Do I like them? Like as a real human, I imagine them. Would I like them? And how is the quality of their portrayal? So like I would allow unlikability of a character to rank that character lower, even if they were like pristine quality characterization, like super believable human. Chivalry, dude, his character is so he's such an endearing character. He's a man who's willing to do. He's the heir to the throne in the Farseer line.
Right.
And he doesn't take that responsibility lightly. He doesn't use his station to elevate his comforts, elevate himself. He very much sees a responsibility to protect his people. And during the course of the books, during the story, they're at war. And he spends himself to save his people quite literally, ultimately. Like early on, he uses the skill, which is something that, ages you. If you use it too much, it drains you of energy. It withers you away. And he uses his skill to fight back against the raiders that keep coming to their shores. And that tires him. And he ultimately sees that that's not enough. It's not going to be enough to save his people. And so he goes on this long journey that ends with him sacrificing himself to raise up a force powerful enough to save his own people. And he's got a line that just really plucked my heartstrings. And I'm happy that you've read these books so I can express it. But remember when he's carving his dragon out of this stuff called Memory Stone.
Yeah.
And in order for the dragon to come to life, for it to quicken, it needs to have a sufficient capacity of human life imbued in it. And so he's literally pouring himself into this dragon. And he's fading away. Like, he'll remember things, but he won't connect with them anymore. Like, he remembers his wife, but he doesn't feel the love. He remembers the love for her, but he doesn't feel it. It's gone. It's in the dragon. His love for his wife is in the dragon. He's doing that. And he's just whittling away. And Fitz is mad at him because Fitz came all this way at Chivalry's command, and now he's just standing there helpless, watching his beloved king kill himself. And Fitz loses his temper, and he's like, "What are you doing? Why would you do this?" And Chivalry looks at him, and I'm paraphrasing, but it just, man, it got me. He says, "What else can I do? Like, I'm at my wit's end. It's like, I've got to save my people." And so he's like, the only way I can save them is by giving myself up to create this dragon that will go and save them. And the way he says it, like, what else can I do? It's just, man, that was something that resonated with me. It felt so real. The desperation of this man. Like, yeah, he recognizes it. He's pained by the losses he's making to save his people, but he doesn't have a choice. But he's not afraid to do what he has to. And that coupled with his relationship with Fitz, the love he has for his nephew, the fact that he doesn't care that his nephew is illegitimate. Everyone else calls him bastard. And it sickens you from start to finish in the book. It sickens you. From the day Fitz is a 6-year-old to the day he's, a young man. People are calling him bastard to, just rub it in his face. It sickens you. And here's Chivalry, a prince, proper born prince that just shows love for Fitz. I love his character. I don't think there's enough good characters in fiction, like good heroes. I like someone who has a dark, troubled past like Kaladin.
Right.
I'm no stranger to writing that myself, but I love a character who's they're just good.
Yep.
They're just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And they're making the sacrifices. And that's Chivalry. And I would equate him to like Aragorn or Boromir. I mean, in case of Boromir has flaws, but Boromir sacrifices himself to save hobbits. And
Chivalry.
It's a beautiful scene.
From what I remember, I mean, you nailed it. I think he's a great character, and that definitely was jogging. Oh, there we go. Boom. All right, next one.
I think that's easy. You don't even. Do you want to add anything?
No, you were definitely jogging my memory as you were talking, and I would agree with your take that there aren't enough just good characters. We've got to be like morally gray or like grimdark, and it's just like, hey, sometimes we want our heroes to be heroic. So yes. I like that take a lot.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll go through Mo real quick. Did you ever read the Inkheart trilogy?
I did not. No.
Mo is the main character. The first book is kind of this urban fantasy, and the whole premise is around this guy named Mo who has a voice so beautiful that when he reads books, he sometimes summons to life the things being read in the book. But he doesn't have any control over it, and it causes a horrible thing to happen. And the first book is all about them trying to fix that. And the next two books kind of reverses the formula. The first book is about fictional characters in our world. The second book is about them going into that world. And you see Mo go from a man who is just someone who repaired a bookbinder is what it's called. He made a living in our modern day in Europe, somewhere in Europe, just fixing books, making a nice little humble living that way. And he goes from that to I'm not going to go into the details because I think it's worth exploring on your own. But he goes through a great character arc. His character is another example of refreshing benevolence. He has a daughter, and he's just a very good father. He's a very loving, gentle, sweet father. He goes through a lot, and he never loses himself, even though there's a lot of things he goes through that in which he could lose himself. And he changes, but he changes in a way that reveals more of his greatness, not destruction of his character. It's very sweet. It's a very wonderful character. I love the Inkheart trilogy. Maybe that's just me being a fanboy, but I think he's great.
Quick question on that.
Say.
Is he great as far as like just his personality, or do you think like how his character is written is great? Okay. There we go.
All right. The author, I forget her name, but the author of the Inkheart trilogy is amazing. She's an amazing author.
I'll have to read it. I'll look it up.
I love the Inkheart trilogy, dude. Like Ink Death, the final book is so awesome. It's just beautiful, and it depicts. I'm not going to tell you what, but it depicts certain concepts that really resonate with me. That really pluck my heartstrings and inspire a sense of awe. And
Is it YA?
I think the end of the final book, yes, it is, and it's what YA should be.
Okay. All right.
I
So
read it as an
holds up.
adult, and like I liked it as a kid. I loved it as a kid. I love it as an adult.
Wow.
It's great.
Okay.
The final book resonates with me with these beautiful themes that inspire awe and make my heart tremble with love for endangered beauties, as the way I would put it, to be vague. And the ending of the final book is, to me, I mean, I have nostalgia, so perhaps it won't be quite so impactful to you, but the final song, the final book, it ends to me like a song, you know, like a favorite song. It's just, it's beautiful, and it's the way a book should end. It leaves you with longing, you know,
I
not
love
like,
that.
oh, well, that's done. It's, oh,
All right. Well, that's
like
a
music.
glowing review.
yes.
I will check it out.
His character, I wouldn't say is necessarily, I don't know. I didn't prep enough for this episode, right? It's easier to kind of revisit things that you've watched than books, because books are so much more dense and so many details you forget. In terms of like the depth of how he's characterized, I think he's a good character, but he's a great man.
Amazing. All right, and why don't we go to Vasher, and we'll end maybe.
Okay, Vasher is
with
from
the
my
two we
favorite
both know.
Brandon Sanderson book called Warbreaker. Vasher is a bit of a Aragorn a character, but early on, he's Strider. He's like Strider. He's this rough guy who's going around doing things, and you don't know his intent. Is he good? Is he bad? You don't know. And in Lord of the Rings, you find out very quickly that Strider is in fact a good guy. Vasher, with his Strider-like vibes of moral ambiguity and rough appearance, you'd have no idea whose team he's batting for until well into the book. I'm not saying which team he's batting for, but he is awesome purely because of the rule of cool. It's not like he has all this depth or anything like that. I just think Brandon Sanderson just nailed it, and I really think he should focus on these kind of standalone stories like this, because like the quality is there. It's consistently there. That's my opinion. Not everybody is like a huge fan of Warbreaker like me. It's probably a little more niche in the Brandon Sanderson fan base, as I understand it. I love Warbreaker, and Vasher's character is just, every scene he's in, he's just a cool dude, doing cool things, and you don't know what it amounts to, which adds an air of mystery, which only compounds the coolness. I love Vasher. That's Vasher. Who's next?
All right, why don't we do Fitz?
Okay, Fitz, dude, I'm gonna go ahead and say I'd say I put him beneath Chivalry.
I would
the
too.
reason why I say this, so the Farseer trilogy, I would like to hear your thoughts after I go. I'm gonna make this quick. The Farseer trilogy, I feel like, suffers from what a lot of first-person books suffer from, in that the main character, from their perspective, usually most books written in first person are still written like they are third person, in that they're written with a more objective tone, and as such you get a very grounded perspective on the story and characters. But as a consequence, usually the other characters, you get to see their personality much more clearly. Like you get to see Chivalry as a man burdened with responsibility, but he has a big heart. You really get to see that about him, and you really love and admire him for it, and it's effectively communicated. He's a great character, greatly characterized. Fitz feels a little more stiff to me, because like the tone of the story is a little more of like a kind of medieval fantasy. It's a little more historic in its tone, and as such it feels a little more stiff, a little more formal. And since it's written in first person, and that's the style of it, and the style of it doesn't tilt at all, it's written like first person, it's written in first person, but it's written like third person. As a consequence, I feel that Fitz, while we see him have his moments of humanity all throughout the story, the entire time he acts like a human, the way it's expressed doesn't feel as intimate, it doesn't feel as human to me, and I feel like that kind of draws him away a little bit. Even though he himself is an amazing character who goes through great things, I think the way he's characterized holds him back a little bit. That's purely preference, which is a matter of art, of writing. It's just that I prefer stories that have a little more emotional tilt to them, a little more passion. I want to thin the barrier between the character and the words on the page so that the reader really has a sense of what they're feeling. And I think Fitz doesn't quite get there most of the time, but it does get better. And I think Robin Hobb got better at it, because I'm reading the next series, which is the Magic Ship, or the Live Ship Traders series. The characters feel much more lively in it, but also it's written in third person. So like no one is the perspective. And I think all of them are much more animated. So I think she got better at it. That's my perspective. I could be off on that, but that's my opinion. Where do you stand with Fitz?
Oh, well, this is another series that, I mean, it's been 10, 15 years since I've read the Farseer trilogy. And from what I remember, everything you said was fair. I don't remember being especially connected to Fitz as a main character. It wasn't like, actually in our next example, I'll be excited to dive into that a little bit more, but Fitz didn't quite resonate me. I thought the story around him was a lot more powerful a draw than his character. And I'm trying to think of specifics. I do remember that just feeling like he kept getting one up, or I've already used that word, but he kept getting somebody always
around
exactly
time.
Exactly. Somebody was always getting the best of him. And after a while, you start to go like, okay, like, come on, when's our moment where, hey, maybe
I got pissed.
It's very frustrating. I remember being very frustrated reading those books, and just, I guess that was like the height of Grimdark, kind of, because you had like Game of Thrones, and you had, well, actually this would have preceded Game of Thrones, I think.
Oh, by a long, well, actually, I don't know when Game of Thrones would have started. The first Assassin's Apprentice was published in 97.
97.
This
okay.
is an old series. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would just be my take, where, as far as a rating goes, like I would probably, the strength of her writing kind of puts him in good, but if I'm just looking at his character and the overall arc, for me, yeah, if you want to put him in good, I'm good with that. It's somewhere between okay or good, but good is good with me.
I'd say in terms of how he's expressed, I mean, he absolutely earns his character development. Like his relationship with his pet wolf is powerful and it's awesome. And she so meticulously reveals the intricacies of the magic system that the development of his relationship with his pet wolf really feels earned, and it really feels like he really is this tough, awesome guy who has all these special abilities. He really is something special. It feels earned, especially since he gets kicked around so much. But I again iterate that I think the way he's expressed, the way his personality is expressed, holds him back, because it doesn't feel quite as raw and as human as it could. And I think that makes him feel a little stiff, maybe perhaps a little bit like Rand al'Thor. And hey, look at that, they're in the same tier. That leaves us with Koth. I'm going to let you lead the charge with that one.
So I'm going to be overly positive about Kvothe, just because I think that this is an example of, well, something that Patrick Rothfuss did, which was brilliant, is he wrote his, so the books are pretty much an innkeeper telling his story to some travelers. And it's third POV, but then he speaks in first person POV, past tense, or it might be present tense. I'm not exactly sure when he's actually in the story. Am I right on that? I believe I'm right on that.
I seem to remember it all being past tense, but don't bank on me being right about that. I could be totally off the mark.
I know he switches like POVs, and it was kind of a cool like device. Like I don't know that I've seen that within the same book. So, but Kvothe, in whatever tense or POV he was written in, I felt quite a connection to him, just because we experienced his deepest loss with him. We experienced kind of that rock bottom for him emotionally, physically, all of it. And then his slow rise, where he was using his wits and his skills to overcome a lot of trials. And to me, this is an example of where the character outshined the story. It's kind of the reverse of the Farseer trilogy, where I think the character was a lot better than the story around him. I think that Patrick Rothfuss was kind of like, I don't know what to do with him. We're just going to have a lot of little adventures. And Kvothe, he really shined through those. He was written in such a strong voice. You can tell that Rothfuss had quite a connection. Like it was all just very organic and natural. And I love the heroics. I love the overcoming. Like I'm a sucker for competent heroes who also have been through a lot of suffering and do a lot of times get the the short end of the stick. But unlike Fitz, it just didn't ever feel like he was getting kicked around and beat up and bullied in a sense in his own story.
That's true. He has a much more even exchange of losses and wins.
Yeah. So I think that for me, like I just, again, kind of have a very glowing review of Quoth, and I'd probably leave it at that. And, if you want to jump in and give me your thoughts.
Go ahead and say which tier he lands in for you.
All right. Listen, I feel like we're going to argue about this, but I'm going to say great.
Yeah, alrighty. Well, that was it, guys. Another episode of the Writers Guild podcast. The end.